coming, but due to budget pressures and other things that have been going on here in the environment in the last 2 years or so, there's a real concern of whether we will see a gap.
Let me see if I can tunnel through that Washington speak you just spoke for a minute, and see if I can put it in simpler language. And tell me if I'm wrong. We may lose a satellite despite Congress is not going to appropriate the money for it.
Well, that's a good way to put it. As I mentioned, we can't just pop the satellite up there. It takes many years of engineering, testing, and then launch. And so we have a plan in place. There is a program in place, but you have to have the money. We can't essentially put these satellites on layaway, if you will. So we really need to have the budget in place and the commitment. And I think that NOAA and our colleagues there are committed. I think that there is a desire because and even more so with things like Sandy, we realize the value of these satellites, not just for monitoring the storm, but 85 to 95% of the data from these satellites go into our forecast models. And it shouldn't be missed that Sandy was picked up by some of our best forecast models and European models 8-9 days out. That's unprecedented or unheard of even 10 years ago.
This is Science Friday from NPR. I'm Ira Plato with Flora Lippman. I'm talking with J. Marshall Shepard, President-elect of the American Meteorological Society.
Is there a satellite technology that, you wish you had, some kind of next generation super satellite?
What if we gave you a blank check? Forget Congress, we give you a blank, we could maybe pull Donald Trump up and ask him to give you a blank check. And give you a money for the satellite that you would like.
Well, I have my birth certificate and my passport, so I think I'm safe. But, one of the things, and I may be a bit biased, but some of the technology that, for example, flies on some of the low Earth orbiting satellites, like the radars that TREM flies and the GPM will fly, and even some of the laser technologies that we now have for things like monitoring surface height of the ocean. These can only fly on low Earth orbiting satellites. Boy, it would really be great to have sophistication radar. Satellites are at about 35,000 kilometers, or roughly 24,000 miles up. So technologically, it's a big challenge.
Infrastructure and how to prepare for storms like this, and you have had a really instructive analogy for how to plan this storm prevention. Walk us through.
I think the Karen and Sandy through the sea level rise. I really like that analogy about lifting a basketball court a foot or two, because which means you'll get more slam dunk. The analogy I use is also a sports analogy. During Major League Baseball, during the steroid era, we know that there were more home runs and longer home runs being hit, likely due to steroids, although any individual home run during the season I couldn't exclusively link to steroids. We know that there was an era of longer home runs and more home runs. And I think that's kind of how we are looking at, and from my perspective, at least Sandy, I think we have primed the system for more intense storms going forward. We can essentially prime the pump for more storms. So I think climate change, if you will, is the steroid on storms of the future. We can't link any individual storm, but I think we can show that there is a footprint on the overall intensity increases. We can't say much, I would argue, about how frequent these types of storms will be. I don't think our science and the literature is there, but there is some informative literature by colleagues like Tom Knudsen and Bender would suggest that we would see more intensity.
Yeah, because the heat on the sea surface is that fuel, right? For those.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things about Sandy is it was a high precipitation one way. It was a high precipitation. But then it transitioned to a mid-latitude cyclone, and it's getting its fuel from the atmosphere.